BRICS, the organisation of an emerging world force, or a bunch of countries disgruntled at not being members of the posh G7 club. Is BRICS becoming the new establishment for the 21st century? After all, it's no longer a monopolar Western world. Do join me, Darasz, for How We Got Here.
By inviting the Speaker of Turkey's parliament to Moscow, Vladimir Putin has taken the initiative in adding traditional US allies to the BRICS bloc. But what exactly is BRICS? Is it truly an alternative to the Western world order, as some would like to see it? Or is it merely a more economy-focused version of the CSTO on a broader scale? BRICS is named after its founding nations: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and later South Africa. First established in 2009, it recently added some new members such as Iran and the United Arab Emirates. Together, these countries comprise a huge chunk of the so-called Global South. BRICS considers itself a different proposition to Western-led institutions and organizations, but just how different has been a point of contention among its members. Russia, China, and now Iran want BRICS to be a counterweight to the US-led world order. These countries, all three of them American rivals on the world stage, emphasize the idea of a multipolar world order, one in which they will have more influence. India and Brazil, on the other hand, are more interested in complementation. Both are key Western partners and have often been at odds with some of the other BRICS states. They don't want their organization to be a hostile entity to the Western world, but rather a more amicable partner. India itself, for example, is a member of the Quad, an alliance that includes Australia, Japan, and the US.
Friends, we are meeting at a time when the world is surrounded by conflicts and tension. At such a time, it is important for all of humanity that the members of the Quad move forward based on shared democratic values.
BRICS is not a military alliance like NATO or the CSTO. It is an economic and trade organization, which is also where its focal point lies. Together, BRICS includes more than half of the world's population and a large share of its GDP. The New Development Bank, founded in 2014, is perhaps its most important feature in this regard. It was meant to complement institutions like the World Bank and the IMF and give a safety net to BRICS. Russia, in particular, however, sees it as a tool to overcome Western sanctions imposed on it for its invasion of Ukraine, and even to abolish the US dollar as the standard of international trade.
We do not pursue the policy of de-dollarization. We did not refuse to perform the settlements in dollars. We were denied the settlements, and we have been forced to seek other opportunities.
China is aligned with Russia on this point and wants to weaken America's hold on the world economy. Its recent push into Africa is a sign of how Beijing wants to expand its influence. But while BRICS has these lofty plans, its members are often at odds. India, China, and Russia are historical rivals. Iran and the observer state Saudi Arabia likewise. Russia's crimes in Ukraine have been nothing but a black stain on the partnership's reputation. Compared to NATO, the European Union, and even Russia's own CSTO, BRICS is very much a collection of strange bedfellows. It's a truly global organization which many believe could shape the world's future in the 21st century, but its strength is also seen as its weakness. Too many cooks in the kitchen, some would say. BRICS has the ambition to challenge the Western order. That much is certain, and some of its members have the will. But the question remains, does it have unity, like the order it wishes to challenge?
I'm delighted to welcome our guest today, Professor Joanna Siekiera at the War Studies University here in Warsaw. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
BRICS today, this loose, well, seems to be a loose organisation of conflicted countries. What is it for? Let's ask the fundamental question. What do they do and why?
Yes, first of all, thank you for having me here. It's my pleasure to see you again.
It's a pleasure to discuss with you.
So from international law perspective, this is not an IGO, so intergovernmental organization like NATO, European Union, or Arab League or African organization. This is a grouping. This is anyhow formal organization. So this is more about politics, bondages, ties, nothing legally binding. So this is up to the states. So we have Brazil, we have Russia,
yes.
we have India, we have China and South Africa. Sometimes we kick off South Africa, so it's BRIC instead of BRICS. But in literature, especially American, we could read the global South, even though Russia is not on the South. But when we compare them to capitalist markets like the US, then we see those countries who are developing, not yet developed, even though, well, China is already developed. Yet it's very, very interesting because some say that we live in multipolar dynamics. Some say that we still have two blocs. So I'm very curious what the future will bring. And this future is starting already today.
What's your own evaluation? Is the United States hegemony that we've seen since the end of the Second World War, in particular, but probably earlier than that, 20th century, is that's fracturing? And is this one of these organisations of rather discontented, anti-Western countries that are grouping together on that basis?
I would say yes, even though they claim they are not. They are not doing anything against anyone, but pro their own population, pro less developed countries or poor countries in Asia or Africa. But again, it's about stopping the US and its allies and promoting their own values. Because I've been saying this also at your channel, your program, many, many times, that when we talk about great power competition, it's not only about money, it's not only about military, but also the values, so legal culture of those countries.
Well, what are the values that cement them together? Russia, India, South Africa, on the face of it, at least, they don't have a shared Western cultural Enlightenment style set of values.
Yes, where our laws, legal systems are based on transparency of public administration, of protection of human rights and human dignity, of composition of power, so judiciary, executive, and legislature. And those countries, they understand democracy slightly different. And when it comes to extremes, so Russia and China, how they breach the law, internal and international, how they torture and murder political opponents, and they go away with that. India, that's another example which is not transparent. Yes, we need India to fight China, but India has its own internal problems. Human rights treatment of women, of girls at schools. Also, South America, after apartheid, everyone is focusing on the racial fight, but I know academics from South Africa, and they say that their country is collapsing because now they have corruption, nepotism, nobody knows what to do. So where is democracy there? We have Brazil. I've been myself 1 month in Brazil, and what I've witnessed is not only caste society, but also big problems with understanding who we really are, because we are a post-colonial country. But are we really a sovereign, independent country, or are we trying to rebuild something from the past or look through the future?
Yes. They control of almost half of the world's GDP, 40% of the world's GDP. The values that you described them, they're not really that bothered about these Western values.
Yes.
What power do they have? What's their soft power? We know that Russia, for example, has picked up the mantle of its ancient, or its rather old Soviet Union message to the third world, as we used to call it. What is the soft power of this organisation that it has, in a sense that the West, it has its soft power, but the other organisation doesn't?
So
is it lacking in that?
Yes, and again, I always like to say that you don't have to believe me, but look in the statistics. When we look at the United Nations voting, how countries vote, no matter which resolution, they are not pro-Western. Vast majority of countries all around the world, they would rather support Russia, China, Brazil, South Africa, because they have more in common with those countries than with the US.
Yes, the Ukraine voting showed that, didn't it?
Exactly. This is pure example how international law works, or rather it does not work. Because we still have Big Five in Security Council, where China and Russia are there. So how can we move on with peace, security and stability, where those two monsters are there? And again, countries from Africa, South America, Asia, Oceania, my beloved research area, they are not pro-West. They see West as occupiers, as colonizers, now as neo-colonizers. So when China enters, for example, to Africa, and they offer to build a primary school or to buy an ambulance, of course they become a hero.
This anti-Western set of values is very powerful. How do you see the BRICS organisation developing? Is it going to put muscle into its soft power?
So first of all, they don't have to do much because we do not anything. Yeah. This is the thing. Like, this is the irony that they don't have to even try. They don't have to use a lot of resources, because we don't put any resources. Again, Oceania could be the example that when Chinese get in, there is no alternative for poor developing countries. There is no Western help. Yes, there are some humanitarian projects by Republic of Korea or Japan, but they are little, like punctual, not in a broad sense of the region, of the MENA region, or South Africa, or South America. And I read some articles that BRICS might come up with their own currency. My guess is they don't need to. Why would they? Yes, dollar is spread all over the world. That's the international currency. But they also pay in dollars, BRICS.
Yes.
So why would they?
It's very much an alliance or a grouping of convenience. Is this their century? In a sense that NATO was the 20th century.
I hope not. This is not their century because, again, of the values. This is my only concern. I believe that we stand for the values of democracy, which is not always clear and equal for all. Yes, I am aware of that. But we must do something. NATO woke up. Finally, we have in the strategic concept Indo-Pacific. We have our closest allies, Australia, New Zealand, Republic of Korea, and Japan, being invited for already 2 NATO summits, unlike before. And again, I also said that on my last interview to American Army, that actually BRICS are frenemies. They are like friends, enemies, so they don't necessarily align with each other, like with politics, economy, but they have something in common, being they want to be bigger than the West. They want to impose, I wouldn't say introduce, but rather impose their own values on countries which have no alternative. We don't invest financially, but also in education to bring new societies of freedom thinkers. So they would see, so this is how Chinese Communist Party rules, and this is how Westerners do this. So how I want my children to grow up in which kind of society?
The Putin model, the Chinese Communist model, the way they organise they structure and surveil their society, it's an attractive. It's an attractive model of an alternative to the West society. countries like Turkey seem to be attracted to BRICS. Saudi Arabia. Do you see this splintering? You talk very eloquently about the Western values and the democracy and human rights. Do you see a splintering in that, going over to the more self-interest?
Yes, I see two things here. First, why the values of BRICS sound appealing to countries which are in between. Not only that they don't have any alternative from us, Westerners, but I think that they are direct, strict. This is what we offer you. And we Westerners, we're like, yeah, okay, this is good. We are losing our identity. Where those guys, they are building their identity. I disagree with their values. I don't want their values here in Poland, in my country. But for those poor developing countries, they don't see what is the alternative, what is the value of the West, who are the Westerners,
yes,
who we are, why should they follow?
I mean, I remember when we talked about your subject, Oceania, that was these myriad of islands,
yes,
island republics, and they looked west to the east, and west and the BRICS group, and BRICS had a clearer alternative. As you say, the Western had this baggage of history.
Yes, exactly. This is the thing that they can offer them, something which is soft, not only money, but this identity. And as you mentioned, Turkey or Saudi Arabia, they don't feel Westerners. They are not being treated as Westerners. So why would they like to join the club who already said, we don't want you because you're not Western enough? This is obvious. We still forget that if we want allies, we must take them as they are, not try to change them.
Yes.
Isn't it obvious? But still, it's typical human nature. Why would India or South America fight to be recognized by the US? Instead, they group together with like-minded partners who also feel humiliated, who feel looked down upon because of nation, because of race, because of lack of assets.
Seems to be, as we conclude our discussion, it seems to be returning to this bipolar world.
I believe
West and the
so,
West.
yes.
Professor Siekiera, thank you very much for coming onto the programme. We hope to have you many times in the future.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So that's it. That's all the time we have for today. Do join us again for How We Got Here.